Okay, I can hear you guys, but I can't see you. Yeah, okay. Can some, can someone please sign my name on the attendance sheet for me?
Because right now I'm off on Mondays,
Okay,
Tuesdays, and Wednesdays.
I
You
still
didn't
can't
start with
see
family.
anyone though.
No, I didn't get it.
Hmm?
I didn't get
Oh,
it.
talk about fools.
Yeah, I was
Oh,
like,
shoot.
oh, right. I was so,
Oh, that is
Okay, thank
foolish.
you.
That is foolish.
I was hurt. But Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays,
Okay, hold on, let me check. Let's see.
I would like to just have a day like
I
every
should
once, because
see.
that's my thing. I want to,
Right.
Uh,
Well, you
meeting.
bring your particular expertise to it, and that's the.
right.
Yeah,
Well,
I
I
mean,
figured that much.
okay,
But other,
Thursday.
other other things as to the structure. Oops, sorry.
Oh, here we go. Uh, Okay, here we go.
Okay, if you have it next Tuesday, just text me and let me know. 5:30, and I'll tell you. Okay, yeah, I'll be there. Okay, yeah, I'll just be there. Okay, yeah, I'll be there. Good, it's better if you're there, but I want to do it as a topic. Okay. Anything about it, so hopefully it's fun to. Okay. Because I don't want to see what else. I think that's a good thing.
And everybody's like, too many meetings to.
Yeah. Yeah, we have it. Yeah, we do.
That's a long time for repairs.
All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Akron Citizens Police Oversight Board meeting for November 13th, 2024. We'll call our meeting to order, and we'll begin with our roll call. Anaskevich,
Here.
Gippin,
Here.
Peoples, Hawkins,
Here.
Costa, here, Richards,
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Awesome.
Do you hear me?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same side. Okay. All right, now I'll read our purpose statement. The overarching mission of the Akron Citizens Police Oversight Board is to foster conditions and police practices that ensure the safety of all residents of the city of Akron. The CPOB is empowered by a new charter provision to independently direct the police auditor
whose office reviews investigation into complaints and misconduct involving officers. The board and auditor also review every standard investigation, whether by the Akron Police Department or outside agencies, into the use of deadly force by an officer. Our values are as follows. Our decisions and actions are motivated by our love for Akron and our desire for all to feel safe in the community. We value unity in voice and in action. We respect each other and those we serve. We seek to build relationships of trust, and we seek to always conduct ourselves with integrity. We listen to understand, learn, and lead. We strive to be inclusive of all stakeholders' voices. We value change at a system level. We hold ourselves accountable for our actions and deeds, and we hold our partners and those who we serve to be accountable for their actions and deeds. Now we'll move on, and I'll ask Mr. Gippen, was there any public comments?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right. We'll go in now to our committee report out. We will start with our auditor, Mr. Anthony Fennell, and his report. Good evening, Mr. Fennell. We don't hear you.
I have prepared a written document that I hope everyone received, but wanted to highlight a few things on the document. Since our last meeting, myself and staff have reviewed 24 uses of force, 23 of which we concur with the findings by APD. There is one where we're in the middle of preparing a report, and that is forthcoming. Did meet with city leadership on yesterday, and I understand that we expect to receive a response to some of the reports that we have submitted previously within the next week. So once received, those responses will be forwarded to the board and the community for review and feedback. As far as current projects, still have ongoing with our database case management development. There's nothing new to report. Expect to connect with purchasing over the next couple of weeks to evaluate the next steps for an RFP process. With OIPA process and procedures, we continue to meet with city administration as we work through those issues, but it's still ongoing. And right at this moment, there's nothing new to report, but we are again making progress in that area to streamline our processes and procedures for sharing information and communicating back and forth. With respect to interns, the posting was active from October 28th through November 8th. However, we did not receive any applications from students within the Akron Public School System. We did receive one application from a student that's outside of APS. City HR is currently processing that application to make sure that the student meets the qualifications as outlined in the posting. I plan to work with HR and APS to coordinate the possibility of us giving a presentation to the criminal justice students so that they can better understand what the auditor's role is and what the Citizens Police Oversight Board's role is, to see if we can garner some more interest in the intern position, and I will keep you updated accordingly. As far as training goes, the Deputy Independent Police Auditor continues to attend the Akron Police Department Citizens Academy. She's more than midway through that process and seems to be learning about APD and its processes. And there have been several community activities or presentations that the Deputy Auditor has attended. She attended the Spring Hill Fall Together community event also the Human Rights Across America's networking event, and the Criminal Justice Reform Subcommittee meeting with the Freedom Bloc Initiative. So we continue to make inroads into community engagement and take advantage of those opportunities as they present themselves. And at this time, that completes the auditor's report.
Thank you, Mr. Fennell, for your report out. I do have a question. Ms. Myers, how was those community engagement events?
They were really informative and impactful. Today was the Human Rights Networking event. I found that to be informative in the sense that there were individuals from all over the Americas. So they had translators there, and just to see, hear about all the parallels that other communities are going through, even across seas, is really a lot of the same prevailing issues that we face here. So to have that kind of international connection was pretty impactful. So yeah, that was a good opportunity. And that's something that I didn't know really existed, and they're starting to meet more frequently. So yeah, it's a good networking opportunity. I would encourage others to participate as well.
Okay. Mr. Fennell and Ms. Myers, you can answer this as well. As you all go out, is there anything that you need as far as something put together? Is it a presentation? Is it a PowerPoint type of thing? Do you all have any thoughts about anything that you may need when you do go out and engage with the community in this way? Because there's the department engaging, and then there's we as a board engage as well. So from your perspective, is it anything that you all need or think that you need if you go out?
I would say that it would be nice to have some type of paraphernalia to hand out, whether it's a swag or just a brief write-up that briefly states what the CPOB kind of does, and the individuals that make, all the different committees and whatnot. It would be nice to be able to kind of give something tangible to individuals that inquire.
Okay. Mr. Fennell, anything from your end?
No, I would agree with what Ms. Myers stated. My thoughts kind of center on maybe something postcard size or a little bigger that, is kind of sturdy stock, and maybe it's something that we can work together on developing. But I do believe that having something of that nature that gives contact information and where people can go to access our services and resources would be helpful.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Fennell in his report?
Yes, Crystal.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Jones.
Yeah, Mr. Fennell, you had written a letter to the mayor with, I thought, with some really pretty good suggestions with regard to the time period for the pre-disciplinary hearing. I think you were recommending that the contract be changed from 120 days to 365 days. Have you heard back from that?
I know that it's been received. I understand the city's embarking on negotiations. So at this point, the issue has been raised, but it has to go through the system and through the process.
Okay, and you didn't get any response at all acknowledging it, or anything in writing, or just?
No, I am aware, and I did receive something in writing that it has been received.
Okay.
Like I said, the city's embarking on the negotiation process. So at this point, it's within that process.
Okay. I thought the points that you raised with regard to the contract were well taken. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Fennell? Thank you, Mr. Fennell, for your report out. Next, we'll move to Mr. Giffen in governance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Governance met on October 30th. We discussed two topics. One, as we have been continuing to do, concerning use of force. Is it too loud?
Yeah, it just seems loud.
Use of force policy issues, and that will continue. We also had quite a bit of discussion about how the Community Engagement Committee might best be structured and what it might best do. I think we have pretty much reached a consensus from that meeting and prior meetings that the best way to begin or re-beginning community outreach efforts beyond just going to events where we're invited is to focus on use of force, both in terms of explanation to the public about how it works now, some thoughts about what it might look like, and then getting feedback. So focusing the community engagement around use of force, at least for the present time. That doesn't preclude other types of discussions, but that would give it a focus, which we felt would be useful for that reason, and also because we need the input as to use of force as part of our process on that. So those were the two topics that we discussed, I think, usefully, and we had good community involvement and input. Mr. Chairman, my intention is to call a governance committee meeting for next Tuesday night, the 19th. That departs from the Wednesdays we've been doing, but it's a little bit, might as well say it now. We're going to be at the 8th Ward meeting at the invitation of Councilman Bolden the next night, so that's not available. If we don't meet, it will be many weeks before we can do it again, given the holidays. So that's my intention. Besides the ongoing topics of use of force and community engagement function, after talking with Mr. Fennell the other day, we're also going to have on the agenda discussion of the review committee and how it might best, be structured, scheduled, and functioned. And I've just had a couple of minutes to talk to Mr. Peoples about it. Hopefully he'll be able to join us that evening, but that's going to be an additional topic that we'll take up in governance. So a lot to do. I mean, we're not going to resolve everything, but it's a pretty big agenda, but we'll particularly focus on review probably in that meeting, but touch the other topics.
Mr. Gibbon, next Wednesday, where's the ward meeting?
As usual, where's the ward meeting?
Yeah.
Community Center on Chateau, Northwest.
And what ward is it, I'm sorry?
8. Yeah, the councilman invited us. He reached out. I believe there's a prep session scheduled for it. Mr. Fennell would know.
6 o'clock?
I think that's the time, yeah.
Okay.
It exactly coincided with our meeting date, which is why we, as you recall, are meeting tonight. I might mention also, Mr. Chairman, if I might, as long as, this is a little bit community engagement, but I think all the board members know that we've been invited to present to the Council Public Safety Committee next Monday afternoon, 2:15, I believe the time. I know it's in the 2 to 3 o'clock hour, mainly to present our annual report, but also to have, whatever discussion about what we're doing, occur. And I think that's going to be a very useful thing to do. And I've spoken with several members of council here the last few weeks, and I know, Mr. Chairman, you have also, and I, very much invited them to ask us hard questions. That's useful to our processing to perhaps be challenged a bit as to what we're doing and why. So I think it's going to be a very useful session, and as many members as can be there, more than welcome.
And Mr. Gibbon, is there any updates on the independent counsel?
No, unless Ms. Matz has something to add tonight. The last I heard is that we're on hold until the website is working. I can report, I guess you know this and others don't. I've had some very useful conversation with some lawyers in town, or broadly in town, about potentially serving as the consultant, the independent legal counsel, and had 3 very good lawyers who expressed interest. So when we have the RFP ready to go out, they all wanted to have it sent. So I think that's a good start, besides posting at various places, and that may get us some additional very good applicants, but unless they change their mind, we've got 3 excellent lawyers who are quite interested in doing it.
Okay.
But if I might, Mr. Chair, remember that if you actually need legal advice right now,
Yeah.
the law department stands ready to help.
Hopefully we don't.
Thank you, Mr. Matz. We appreciate it.
I guess that's all I've got, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Gippen? Ms. Costa?
Yeah, what time is that public safety presentation is going to be next Monday?
I don't know exactly. I mean, it's on we've got the calendar right here in front of us. It's 2:15. I was right about that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I could not hear the comments from Ms. Matz. Could she say those again in the microphone? I couldn't hear.
I just wanted to make sure that you knew that if you actually do need some legal advice or some answers to legal questions, that the law department stands ready to assist.
Okay, thank you very much.
If there's no further questions for Mr. Gippen, we're going to move on to you kind of doubled in with the community engagement, so I'm going to assume we don't need to step into community.
Well, that's all I really knew about that's going on, if anybody knows anything else.
Ms. Jones, I didn't know if you had any comment regarding community engagement.
Yes, I do. As probably some of you know, I had been considering co-chairing possibly this committee with Katie, and because it is a very important component of what we do. And Bob, Mr. Gippen and I had been talking about possibly, rather than making having a whole nother meeting, because at this point we already have 2 a month with governance and our regular board meeting, that possibly we make community engagement a component of the agenda of the governance. In other words, whatever we talk about, then there's got to be, there most likely will be a community engagement component to it. How do we educate the community about whatever we decide? How do we get input from the community about whatever we decide? And as Mr. Gippen mentioned, use of force is one of the things that we want to key in on, and we were actually advised of really focusing, at least in part, on use of force at the NACO conference, because again, this is what much of the community is concerned about, and these are the things that basically need to be addressed. So I'm still considering it. As some of you may also know, I've had some personal family matters that kind of have taken me out of things a little bit, so I'm hesitant to take on a front and center leadership role on that committee right now. This is my family matter has taken up a lot of time, but I do want to be available. And certainly if we do, part of it is, part of our community engagement obviously is going to events that are already planned, for us to show up, educate educate the community about what our board is about, what we do, getting their input, and then some of it is also, and as we talked about in governance, holding possibly, even if it's not that often, but holding our own events so that we can, hear from the community, basically get their input, educate them on what we're doing. And as we together, collectively, and when I say collectively, I mean not only the community, but with APD, with the mayor's office, our board, with the auditor's office, try to figure out, what kinds of changes, what kind of modifications we can make to the practices, and I won't even say policies at this point, practices, the use of force practices that are being used within our police department. How can we collectively reach some common ground on some changes that would be a benefit to everyone, actually. So anyway, so I'm still available. I'm still wanting very much to be involved. I just at this point can't take on a leadership role to drive it, and hopefully that'll change soon.
So, Ms. Jones, I can tell you that Ms. Castle has agreed to help assist in the community engagement piece. So I believe I talked to her last week, and so she confirmed that she is willing to help to co-lead that committee, so that we can be supports to you and just be supports to one another. So thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
If I might, and this might be for my clarity, I didn't have the benefit of our most recent governance meeting, but I am curious how our activities with respect to use of force considerations and potential recommendations will interact or interplay with the city's use of force review to any extent it will interact, or how those two processes will, I guess, coexist, or if there will be any interaction between the two.
Yeah, we did talk about that, actually. Thanks for bringing it up. We're operating on the assumption that the administration, I should say, that the administration will involve us. I see Mr. Ingram is on the Zoom, and maybe he can speak to this, but that we would be invited to be involved. I believe the mayor has said that directly. But our feeling was that in order to most usefully be involved, we should continue this process that we've had ongoing of essentially, formulating our views, as to what a potential change in the policy might look like, and then being able to bring that to the administration's process. That's been the thinking.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, if there's nothing else, we'll move on to Mr. Costa and our finance. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Ingram. Did you have something?
No, just going to reiterate the conversations with the mayor. He definitely wants this body to be a partner as we move forward in thinking about this policy review process. And he's continuing to think through that. We're continuing to think through that. But he has stated several times that he wants this board and the independent auditor's office to be a part of that process.
Thank you, Mr. Ingram. We'll move on to Mr.
I just have a quick question.
Go ahead, Ms. Jones.
Ingram. Mr. Ingram, is there a timeline, any sense of when efforts might be made to sort of bring folks together to kind of talk about how we go forward collectively?
No definitive timeline at this point. I will just say the mayor and our staff are actively working through that process, consulting with experts at the national level to help through that process. But I don't know that I can put a specific timeline on it at this point, just to say the mayor wants to do this as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to Mr. Costa and our finance report.
Okay, just a quick budget and finance update. I circulated copies of our updated budget as of today. I sent that out via email to board members, as well as circulated physical copies among our members that are here too. To date, we have $145,367 remaining under our budget for the rest of the year. The bulk of that, as usual, comes for labor categories and what we're paying out to our staff members. I don't anticipate that there's going to be nearly as large of a potential carryover as there had been in the prior years. It's kind of hard to get a sense of specifically forecasting what the exact dollar amount will be. If you look at our payout slash leave time, there's actually a bit of a deficit there of almost like $13,000. And so, you know, that will need to be replenished from some additional funds. I also need to touch bases with Mr. Fennell to confirm that all of the cost associated with our with the annual NACOL conference that we paid out have actually are reflected in the current budget to date, because one of the larger funds that are still available under the broad education category, it doesn't appear to me that they may have been deducted from there. So I'll need to confirm with Mr. Fennell and just get with him. And generally, as we look to start to prepare our budget to present to council, which I anticipate will happen next month, but have not received. Do you, Attorney Matz, do you know when the city's budget process will take place this year?
I don't exactly. I know that they're trying to move the process up. So they're trying to move the process up because this year we got a little close to the deadline. I think that they're hoping to have the budget finalized in February, which means those hearings will probably happen in December or January.
Okay, thank you, and sorry to put you on the spot, but I do know that your department has a budget itself, so you're probably involved with the process.
Yeah, and I haven't gotten a date yet, so.
Excellent. So from a priority standpoint, I think it now is looking to make any requests for legislation to carry over any dollars that we reasonably think that won't be used this year, in addition to crafting a budget to present at the hearings for next year. And so I'll be working to connect with Mr. Fennell to get a sense of where he's at in terms of what he thinks he's going to need to run the department, so then we can put together a more comprehensive picture of exactly where we're at, and what that'll look like from a budget request standpoint and presentation.
Mr. Costa.
Yes, sir.
Would you check your schedule so that you and I can maybe block out a couple hours next week to actually sit down and do this? Because I have prepared some documents already of what I believe we'll need for the office, but I have not started the actual process yet. So if we could probably pull that together sometime next week, that would be great.
Okay, that sounds like a plan. I can shoot you some times later this evening.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Costa, the item under property rental, that's when we rent outside of, like when we host something?
Correct.
Is that what that is?
Correct. So we had allocated some funds in anticipating about $20,000 in anticipating that we might be throwing some community events this year. Okay. We never actually ended up utilizing those funds. So that's one of those broad budget categories that we'd be looking to realistically either reimburse from some other areas where we're deficit at and or carry that over to the next year if possible, assuming that we have a purpose that we would be able to actually encumber those funds with respect to.
Yep.
Which may connect to the new software or data management system and any of those contracts that may be in consideration right now.
Thank you, Mr. Costa.
Yep, my pleasure.
Any further questions for Mr. Costa before we move on? Okay. Next, I'm going to go on to Ms. Richards. HR, anything?
No report.
Thank you so much, Ms. Richards. We'll go to Chip. Go ahead, Ms. Costa.
Quick question, and I'm sorry if I'm out of the loop. Did we establish, I guess, a timeline or a place or when we would be providing an annual review for Mr. Fennell?
I have not finalized that yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Costa. Do want to acknowledge and recognize from an HR perspective, Shannon Thompson's been with us for a year now. Is that correct? Congratulations. Yeah, happy anniversary to you. We'll move on next just to the chair's comments. My comments are very concise this evening. Mr. Fennell mentioned that we had, I thought, a very productive encounter with the mayor and member of his administration yesterday. Yesterday, Mr. Fennell?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yesterday, just continue to trying to hash out timeline from a standpoint of when we make the recommendation and their response. I feel very encouraged with now having Mr. Ingram having his eyes and his hands on that timeline and creating that timeline. They believe that 45 days is going to be something that is able to happen, but even if it's a window of 45 to maybe possibly 60. But what I want to encourage this board is that those conversations are going well. And, you know, as long as we keep the door of communication open, we feel very positive about our discussions. So, and also just want to continue to thank Mr. Fennell, his team, Ms. Myers, Ms. Thompson, for the great work they've been doing for the past months. I know when I'm out in the community, I hear really good things about the department. You all's not only engagement, but your attentiveness to the citizens of Akron, which I think is important, and some of the times and the things that have been happening and going on. And as always, I want to thank this board just for their time and their efforts. Thank you, Mr. Giffen. I know there's a lot going on in governance, and thank you for just kind of navigating those with your team there with Mr. Costa and also Ms. Castle and everybody else. And I just want everybody just to be mindful just in this time of the holiday season. Man, take time out to self-care as much as you can. Take care of yourselves. We need you showing up the third Wednesday of every month. And we, you know, I'm sure your places of employment and your families need you showing up every day. So please just take care of yourself, be mindful. As the weather changes, bundle up a little bit more. But is there anything else from anybody? Any other comments, questions, concerns about anything? We'll be coming back here December the 18th. That's the third Wednesday, correct? Somebody check my math. Okay. So our next meeting would be December the 18th. Please be on the watch for any type of committee notices. I know Mr. Gibbons is going to try to get governance together next Tuesday, correct? Yes, sir. And then we will be here next Monday at 2:15 in front of the Public Safety Committee presenting our annual report, which is great. It looks really good. Thanks for all the contributors. And also next Wednesday, we'll be over at Ward 8 representing there. So I'm excited that, man, we're just going to keep on moving and keep being busy. Mr. Costa?
Mr. Gibbon, do we have a location for next Tuesday's governance meeting?
Not yet. As usual, I'll line up a library branch.
Okay, thank you.
Before we leave, we had some members of the community come in. If there's any public comment anytime that anybody would like to make, we would accept and receive that now. If not, no worries. Okay, awesome.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
are you interested in the board hearing some of the feedback that from the conference that we went to?
Oh, yes, please, Ms. Anaskevich.
I'm sorry?
I said, yes, please, that'd be great.
Okay, so, you know, I have a lot of notes here, but I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm just going to go through a couple points that I think are in our purview as a board. I went to one class that was about civil rights in law enforcement, and this was out of Phoenix. This was the experience that the board in Phoenix had, where the police were discriminating against people with disabilities. So I had asked a question on what did they do about that, and also the homelessness and how they were being targeted by the police and what their findings were for that. And what they did is something that I feel good about, that they created a critical care response team, which is something that I think our police department has already implemented or is close to implementing. So I felt good about that because, you know, it made me feel like we're, you know, our department is on the right track with that type of thing. You know, dealing with people who are homeless, and a lot of homeless people do have, you know, they're dual diagnosed or they have at least one mental illness. And, you know, at the time when this was implemented, they did a policy review and practice, not a policy review, but practice review, and saw how their citizens there in Phoenix who had disabilities and or were homeless, how they were being treated differently and discriminatively by the police department. So they implemented that care team to go out on the calls. If the call came in and said somebody's acting crazy, whatever, they would send someone from that care team along with the police department, along with the police officers who are responding, because every officer doesn't understand and or know how to deal with people who are mentally ill. So I felt good about that because we're kind of already doing that, our police department. So that was one part. And then another part, this was out of Albany, New York, where they said that the voters give them more power there. When, they were talking about the obstacles to their oversight practices, they rely on the voters, which I think we're kind of on track with that as well, with, the reports that Mr. Fennell said he would be making public. Um, and they talked about how they monitor the police to keep them from escalating people that they interact with. So they look at they monitor untruthful statements and offensive language, and they also talked about how they this CPOB board actually have prosecutorial privileges, which I thought was very interesting, where they can recommend the discipline of New York Police Department personnel, and they can also recommend prosecutions. I thought that was very, very interesting, to say the least. So the other thing I want to talk about, and it's not, I'll be finished with this because I know Mr. Giffen has some things to talk about too. And then I'm going to give you my overall takeaway based on everything that I learned, not just through the classes, but with also networking with people from all over the country, CPOB boards from all over the country. Seems like everybody's doing something different, but everybody's also doing something the same. So it's very, very interesting. But one thing I know at one point we were talking about, and I think Mr. Gippen had brought this out about going over. It was a tall order task, but going over police reviewing police policies. And one thing that they found in New York is that the police officers, regardless of what profession you have, you're going to practice however you're trained. Okay. You're going to practice however you're trained to practice, whether you're a doctor, lawyer, Indian chief, whatever. So they did a study, they did it, and they found out that the police were the recruits, the new recruits were being trained in racist training. That's what they called it. So I asked if they could give an example of what the racist training was. And what it was is that when they were training the police officers on how to deal with citizens aggressively, or how to arrest them and how to be aggressive or assertive with them, all of their examples involve people of color. All of them involve people of color or people who were homeless or disenfranchised people. None of the training had anything to do with people who weren't in any of those categories. And they were all mostly people of color. So the CPOB board there tapped into that and looked at those policies and set out to try to get the police, how to get the police attention on how they needed to change their policies and how they are actually training their police officers. Because if you train police officers to only go into neighborhoods of color and to only practice their craft in neighborhoods of color, that is discriminatory because crime happens all over the place. I mean, people, who are wealthy or whatever, or have better means, they commit crimes too. They have domestic violence crimes and things like that. So I thought that that was really interesting. So I'm going to stop and let Mr. Gippen take over. But my gist, my biggest takeaway from this conference and networking with people from all over the country and talking to different people and hearing what some of these boards have made tremendous strides. When you have, and I'm sure that they have been in operation for much longer than we have. But when you have the power as a CPOB board to reach all the way into getting someone prosecuted, that's a lot of power. So my gist in all of this is, and I've been saying this before in our meetings, we need to look at our charter again. We need to see where we can tweak it, if we can tweak it, so that we have a little bit more leverage in what the citizens of Akron have voted for us to do. You know, we have to be poised where we can actually make a difference in this board and not just, you know, make recommendations that may or may not be met and then just say, oh, well, you know, we need more power. We need maybe some amendments or something. We need to just start working towards that. And that's my takeaway based on, you know, this conference. We have to have more power somewhere, even baby steps, even in one little area, but we have to do something.
Thank you so much, Ms. Anaskevich.
You're welcome.
Well, I think Ms. Anaskevich expressed it well. We've talked. I don't know that I fully, as far as priorities, I'm not sure that the charter change is that I feel quite as strongly about that as she does. My two biggest takeaways from the conference were that, particularly in terms of what the board, as opposed to the auditor or the equivalent, the professional staff, the most important thing I think we can do is community engagement, and that just came through. There was a lot said about it, but the importance of it was just overwhelming. And I think that you know, recognizing how busy everyone is and limited bandwidth, I think that if there's anything that the time that we spend will be most usefully spent now, particularly since I think we've gotten by, you know, a lot of the structural issues, is community engagement. That's what we really need to be doing. The other thing is that it was also very clear that the Ohio boards and commissions and staff need to be working together. I've got to say it. I mean, a number of the presentations were about threats to oversight, and in a couple of states particularly, the legislatures have intervened and limited the powers of oversight. You know, so I think that it's vitally important that we Ohio boards and commissions get ahead of that. And I know Mr. Fennell has already got something scheduled, a conversation I think we've all gotten information about, but everybody, we had a lot of time to talk with the other Ohio folks. They're great people. And everybody agreed we've got to be working together. Also on training, hopefully NACOL might at some point do an Ohio event. But by and large, we need to be really working together on the things where the state government comes into play. So those are my two takeaways, but otherwise, I thought Donzella captured it very well.
Thank you, Mr. Gippel.
Can I say one other thing, Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm sorry, I left this part out. I think this is important too. When it comes to police misconduct, they were talking about a transparency issue. And this is something I didn't know, and I don't know if you all knew this or not, but when officers rise up in the rank, their badge numbers change. So if they committed, you know, something, a crime, or if they were, you know, did something that they shouldn't have done as a police officer, and then they were exonerated, and then they take the sergeant's exam or the lieutenant's exam or the captain's exam all the way up the pike, their badge numbers change each time. So what this board did is they created a metadata system, and this goes in line with what Mr. Fennell had been talking about, you know, over the last couple of meetings about technology, us using our technology, so that they could track those officers, especially if they continue to move up the ranks, they can still track them based on something nefarious that they may have done as a police officer, and now they're a lieutenant and no one knows anything about it because their badge number has changed. So I thought that was extremely interesting.
Again, thank you so much, Ms. Anaskevich. That is very informative, and please keep some of those updates coming to this board. I think that is very beneficial for us as we continue to forge ahead. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chair, I couldn't stay for the conference very much of it, but I was there for a day, and I was too struck by the commonality of purpose and some of the same obstacles that we're facing with regard to authority, how much authority our auditor's office has, how much authority our board has, and then the various ways that people that boards around the country are getting around that or meeting those challenges and obstacles. So, and Mr. Gibbon was saying that in terms of what is more important, I think there's a dual, you know, importance in terms of our charter amendment, and I know that's a very formal process, and I don't even know where the city is because I think with the charter amendment, it's a formal process that's going to take a while to get, if we want to modify or tweak, our power at all, but it still needs to happen, at least have it be looked at. So it's to me sort of equally as important because if you get the community together, you get their input, they have all these ideas about what needs to change. And if there's no power or authority to change it, then I think people just get frustrated and they just go away and they figure same old, same old. Just wanted to say that I again thought that, and I was encouraged and inspired by the commitment and the work of largely volunteers around the country who are committed to this work. And so again, um, I thank the board and the auditor's office for the opportunity to attend the amount that I did attend.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jones, and I tend to agree. I think, sometimes we can get into absolutes, and I think there can be a both and. I think going back to Ms. Anaskevici's point regarding the power of the people and the power of the people's voice as we engage, to Mr. Gibbon's point, I think in community engagement, I think subsequently that helps us towards some of the changes that need to be made within the charter amendment. That process is going to take a little bit longer. But I think there's nothing wrong with us beginning to have maybe some of those discussions in governance to try to look at, okay, what is that we're really trying to do based on some of the information that we're getting. So I really appreciate that. Thank you all for taking the time to
Mr.
go.
Chair,
Yes.
I'm sorry, one last point, and
No, you're good.
I promise it's the last point. The Cleveland board, we had a lot of interaction with them, and they came up with an idea that I think we should at least think about, and it's board swapping. In that, a couple times a year, they come in and set in on our board, and some of us go in and set in on their board, and then we can, either, we can collaborate, maybe create a new learning curve for both boards, or just see how each board is doing things, and then just kind of stay in touch, and so we can stay encouraged on how we're doing the work that the people have asked us to do.
I think that's a good idea. Ms. Anaskevich, could you I know you have all your notes written down somewhere, but is there any way that you can take some of the topics that you presented tonight and almost like put it in some type of a bullet and send it out to all of us? That way we are
Absolutely. Sure.
kind of,
It might take me a couple days.
that's fine, no problem.
Caregiving right now, but yeah, sure, I'll be happy to do
Yeah,
that.
because I think those things are important. And again, to your point, I think if we can come back to maybe something else that you learned that can be shared from NACO, we don't have to try to get it all in one meeting, but maybe over the course of our other meetings, we have a time, Ms. Anaskevich, that you can kind of share some of those ongoing things. I think would be helpful
Okay.
for us to continue to hear that and to start to, if you will, kind of build a playbook of what maybe things can look like for us. I think that'd be important.
Okay, sure, absolutely, I'll be happy to.
Any
Mr.
other?
Chair,
Yes.
because of my unique position in NACO, I have access to all of the materials that our presenters this year used or referenced in their presentations, and I can make those available to board members if you so choose. We had many, many different sessions, and even with the number of people that we had from Akron that attended. Everyone was not able to attend all of the sessions, but there's lots of good information, and some have slide decks and some have reference material that I think might be helpful to each of us. And you can look at it at your leisure, but I can make that available. And I'll figure out how to do it. If someone's interested, just let me know, and I'll figure out how to do it so that you have access to it.
Yeah, I think that would
That's an
be
even
awesome
better
because,
idea, actually. That's an even better idea because then you have
yes,
all of the information.
yeah. I think that's a good idea. Could we possibly, Ms. Thompson, could we put that in the drive? And everybody can have access if he's able to put it, yeah, in the shared drive? Okay. And we'll look into that, Mr. Fennell. I think that's a really great idea. That way we have it as almost a catalog for us to go back to on a regular basis as a reference point. Thank you. Any other questions or comments that anybody wants to say or give?
Yeah, I was just going to say that catalog will also be very, very valuable for us for our next year's annual report as well.
Absolutely. Okay.
If I could really quickly. I don't have I did not, thank you everybody for the comments that you made with respect to the NACL conference and for you guys going there, your time and attention. Kind of an unrelated note, and this is just kind of a comment. While I don't have a crystal ball, I do feel that the sentiment behind support for policing and the use of force in the country is going to be taking a potential shift due to the change of the political landscape. And I think that we just need to be ready for what that looks like in Akron, Ohio.
Mm-hmm. Amen to that.
Thank you, Mr. Costa. Can I get a motion to adjourn if there be nothing else?
So move.
Second.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Enjoy your evening, everyone, and be safe. God bless you.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.